What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we have another different new discussion video. This time I'm talking about boss monsters. Now, a specific type of boss monsters I want to focus on here, and that's main deck boss monsters. Listen, it's 2020. It's no surprise. Most boss monsters in the game exist in the extra deck. It's just how it is. It's just how the game is developed. It's the most powerful way, easily accessible way to get to those boss monsters. So I think Konami went with that route, especially as far as competitive decks are concerned. But I think there's a very specific lane that hasn't really seen a lot of talk about, but I wanted to kind of go in and discuss my thoughts on this phenomenon, which is main deck boss monsters, because they've evolved a lot over the years, and I think for a main deck boss monster to be good in Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2020, it does need some specific things, and if they fall short, they probably won't be that good or push whatever deck they're played in to a higher tier of play. So you look at something like Judgment Dragon. Obviously, Judgment Dragon has been power crept out the wazoo at this point. It takes so much setup to make it live, right? You have to have 4 more different Lightsworns engraved. Actually, now it's easier than it was before, but still, it's still kind of unreliable. So even if you saw a meta Judgment or a Lightsworn build, you might not see Judgment Dragon in it. But it is still really powerful. The payoff is insane. Destroy all of their cards on the field. That's also not once per turn. So even if they had stuff to block it, you just do it again and again and again. And it's insane. And then it still mills for you. So big body, jumps on the board, takes a little bit of setup, but still very good. But that's an older one, right? So I want to go to something newer, and I want to look at that, and I want to discuss what I think. So we look at the 3 mutant new boss monsters. Why is this picture so much bigger? Whatever. We have Arsenal, we have Mist, and we have Beast, okay? These are the 3 new mutant main deck boss monsters for an archetype that literally got released, 4 days ago? It's very, very new, very, very fresh. And I want to talk about what they do, right? Because they all kind of do one thing. They all have like protection from one type of card. Beast can't be targeted by monster effects. Mist can't be targeted with spells. And I believe this guy cannot be targeted with traps. So they all have targeting protection from a specific type. And then they all disrupt a certain type, right? Like Beast says, if your opponent activates a spell card, you can banish one card from your hand or field to negate the activation, then banish that card. That's pretty good. But you do have to give up an extra card for it. And it's specific to spells, too. That's the other problem. It's just a little bit too specific for me. I just think these cards are being too specific. And he does float as well, right? If he's destroyed just by a card, by an opponent's card, you can target a banished mutant trap and add it back to your hand. Same with these. They all do like the same thing, kind of. Like this one disrupts trap cards and then floats into a monster. And then this one disrupts a monster, but floats into a spell. So they all kind of do specific things, but I don't think any one of them do quite enough. And I want to focus on one big thing here as well, is I think the biggest thing with these cards is they do not summon themselves. In fact, quite the opposite. They actually made it harder for you to summon because they say they can't be special summoned except by a mutant card. So even if you had something like Monster Reborn and they were engraved, you can't even get them back out like that. They actually make it harder on you to get them out, but specifically out of the hand. And I think that's one of the biggest things with if you want to have, if Konami wants to make a good main deck boss monster in 2020 and going on, we're almost in 2021, they need to make a boss monster that not only is powerful, has that payoff, but also can be an extender, extend itself, not have to be pulled out by engine pieces. I want to be able to get my engine pieces negated and then follow up by dropping my boss monster, because I'm like, bam, bitch, I had it in my hand. Good luck. You know what I mean? And the mutants, these guys are terrible because you kind of want to play them all because they give you utility versus, most decks with spells, specifically back row decks with traps. So maybe this is more of a side deck one, but you at least want to play these two because this one disrupts monsters and this one disrupts spells, the 2 most common cards in the game at the moment. But if you ever draw them, you're just like, ugh, that sucks to draw. That just sucks to draw, right? And it's so bad. So we're going to look at one of the best main deck boss monsters we've ever seen, maybe the best main deck boss monster we've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. If you don't know what he does a ton. First off, he summons himself just by banishing 2 dinosaur monsters from grave. Not the easiest thing to set up in the world, but also not the hardest. I think one Oviraptor easily sets this up. Yeah. I thought about it, and yes, he does. So there you go. One Oviraptor normal summon immediately can get you the setup for a Tyranno. Also, he can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. And And if he attacks a defense position monster, you can just destroy that monster without applying damage calculation and then deal your opponent 1,000 damage. Or actually, it doesn't destroy, it sends. Sorry. And then the last thing you can do is it actually has a quick effect during the main phase where it can destroy one monster you control or in your hand to Book of Moon all monsters your opponent controls. So flip them all face down, which sets him up for his attack everything and send everything for 1,000 damage, right? So he's insane with OTKs. He has a disruption effect because that Book of Moon effect that doesn't just Book of Moon one monster, all monster your opponent controls is during either main phase. So that's a disruption. That's a legit powerful disruption. He's 3,500 attack points, which is insane, and he just attacks everything. He is an insane boss monster, and I think he might just very well be the best main deck boss monster we've ever seen in this game. And maybe you're saying, John, you can't compare these new boss monsters to something like Conductor. Conductor's too strong. Conductor's too good, right? Well, we'll look at something in a minute that's maybe not quite Conductor level, but still good enough where you look and go, that's 2020 playable right there. Very much so. Keep in mind, dinosaurs are a tier 1 deck at the moment and have been floating around competitive play for years. Actual years. And Conductor is a huge reason. I think if they don't have Conductor, they don't have the same power output, and they probably don't sit in tier 1. So keep that in mind. But one of the biggest things that I want to focus on with the Conductor that I tried to make light of in the last, when we were looking at the mutants, is he summons himself, which means if you start a play with like an Oviraptor and you start doing things and your opponent negates some things, stops your plays, you can follow up as long as you're able to put 2 dinos in grave, which you're playing a dino strategy. It's not the hardest thing in the world. Conductor. Boom. Drop Conductor and lay down the hurt in the battle phase once you've baited out enough disruptions. He is very, very strong, and even if you don't kill your opponent that turn, he now offers you a very, very powerful disruption during their turn, especially for combo decks, because even if combo decks monsters get negated but not removed, they can still link away and still extend. Now with Conductor, when he flips everything face down, it's all gone. They can't even use them as material anymore. So it's very, very, very strong. This is probably the best main deck boss monster we've ever seen, and that's why he's still good in 2020. Now I want to shift to the last card here that we're going to look at today, which is Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. This is a card that you might say, okay, not as strong as Conductor, but to be honest, nothing's as strong as Conductor as far as main deck boss monsters go. But he does kind of sit here at like a comparable level, okay? Kind of same 3 principles, right? You want offensive payoff, you want defensive payoff, right? You want a disruption, you want an ability to like take care of threats offensively, and you want it to be an extender. Okay, those are the 3 big things we've seen here. Conductor, Book of Moon's things, he summons himself, and he has that ability to push for massive amounts of damage, wipe multiple monsters in the battle phase, and lay down the hurt. Well, Phoenix Gearfried kind of does that, maybe not quite on the level of Conductor, but still very comparable, and comparable enough to make him playable in a tier 1 deck in 2020 in For Noble Knights. So first things first, how does he summon himself? He banishes any equip from grave. Okay, well that's pretty easy. Isolde dumps equip super easily. You have a Searcher equip spell that as soon as it's equipped, destroys itself to search, and then sits in grave, ready for Phoenix Gearfried to just jump on the field. So he jumps on the field very, very easy in a deck that plays equip spells. Secondly, he has his offensive effect, where in the battle phase, if he attacks a monster, he can just equip that monster to himself. Very good. I mean, it's non-targeting, non-destruction removal. It does require the battle phase, but to be honest, this card still might be playable without that effect, so that's a pretty damn nice icing on the cake effect, if you ask me. And the third effect says if you control an equip spell, you can negate a monster effect by sending an equip spell you control to the graveyard. So he sets that up by attacking and stealing a monster and equipping it to himself, so he gives himself fodder for that. Or if you just hadn't had an equip spell you could put anywhere on the field, keep in mind it doesn't have to be on him, he makes his monster negate live. Now, it's not an omni negate, but let's be honest, monster negates are the best kind of negates in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment, out of Spell, Trap, and Monster. I don't think that anybody's going to argue that. So he's very, very good, and I think it just goes back to the same principles. Not on the same level of Conductor. You're not Book of Mooning a ton of things, just one monster negate one time. You're not attacking every monster offensively in the battle phase, just clearing an entire board. You're only just attacking one and stealing it, and you don't get to redeclare an attack, I don't believe. And he summons himself easily. Actually, more easily, you would argue, then Conductor. All you need is any equip spell engrave, and you can get him out, which is so good. And he's still 3,000. I also believe when he equips himself, he actually gains 500, so he actually can go up to 3,500, which is pretty good. And he's just great. I think the biggest thing is flexibility here. Is just the ability to jump out of the hand. I keep stressing this. I keep stressing the ability for them to still be extenders. Phoenix God Gear, or Immortal Phoenix Gear Freed, his best quality to me is not his effects on the field. It's the fact that you can go attempt Infernoble combo, attempt Infernoble combo, attempt Infernoble combo. Your opponent throws 1, 2, 3 hand traps at you, thinks they have your play stopped completely, and then you just go with the last card in your hand, banish one equip from my grave, special Immortal Phoenix Gear Freed, equip a spell, or if you already had an equip spell, maybe you just equip one of the Infernoble Knights from grave to anything. Boom, you've got a monster negate, and now you can pass. And your opponent just threw 3 cards from their hand at you, and you still set up a monster negate. So they're going to have 2 to 3 cards to play at least through 1 negation. That'll work. That could be a problem for people, especially if the cards aren't the super choice cards in their hand left over. So, yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about this for a while. I really love main deck boss monsters, but I love them when they're done right. And one of the biggest reasons mutants have been a turnoff for me, I literally, keep in mind, guys, I'm a fan of all 3 of the other archetypes from Phantom Rage, not mutants, is partially because of this. They just don't do it for me. They don't extend themselves. They're too bricky, and their effects are a little bit too choice. None of them are very offensive. They're all reactive and floaty, which is not where you want to be in 2020, I don't think. I think you need to be a little more proactive with cards. So I think if Konami, please, if you're going to make more main deck boss monsters for strategies, you're going to need to go a little bit more into this kind of route. They need to be extenders. The effects can be whatever, but if they're extenders, then worst case scenario, it's link fodder. Even if their effects aren't that good on the field, like, they're still extenders. They jump on the field way easy. Like, awesome. That works. But hopefully that's where we see things go, because I want the cards to be good. I want more decks to be good. I want more rogue decks, more tier 2 decks, more tier 1 decks. I want more stuff thrown into the mix. But that's what's going to take if they're going to do it with main deck boss monsters. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more discussions like this one in the future. And let me know your thoughts on my thoughts, essentially. Like, how do you feel about main deck boss monsters, specifically in the competitive scene? Do you think they need to be as good as Immortal Phoenix Gear Freed or Conductor? Or do you think they can be worse but still do something? Do you think the mutants still have a chance? I really don't see it. I think they need a lot of cards for mutants to have a chance at being competitive in the future. But I'll leave that to you guys. Throw that down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to get the hell out of here. Peace.